All right, thanks everyone for joining us. This is top 10 reasons to use Windows 10 current branch and long-term servicing branch. If you stay on top of things, which we're all trying to do, the names of all these have changed. But we're going to stay with current branch and long-term servicing branch just to stay with the title. And then we'll talk, we'll mention what the changes have occurred because we want to align Windows and Office together. So we'll kind of take that as a starting point. And I also like to call out what this session is not called is why to never use Windows 10's long-term servicing branch. All right, so it's not called that, so we're going to put the cross. It's going to seem like I should have called it that, but I'm not. That's not what it is, and we'll kind of dig through it. Also, just a quick get a show of hands because we're all nice and close here. Who here is tried to roll out Windows 10 in one way or another with some of the tools? Okay, most people here. Has anyone worked with long-term servicing branch for a large portion of their organization? So some people here as well. Okay, so it'll be good to get your feedback on what we hear today. Two thanks I want to put out, and then one last one is Michael Niehaus, who's the Director of Product Marketing for Windows 10, does a lot of work around Windows as a Service, and I have a link at the end that we can look at. And then John Wilcox is also a huge evangelist around this. So a lot of his content for both of them we use. And the other thing is I work in the Philadelphia Microsoft Technology Center. It's really a place where you can come in and do design sessions, and usually it's full day sessions that we do with customers to work through deployment, design questions, and all the dependencies that you have. And I last year worked with about 100 customers. A lot of them were in Windows 10 workshops that we did. So if you're interested afterwards, come up and I can give you the link to where we do those workshops. They're open for every customer who's nearby. Bring your whole team, and we'd love to have you. So a lot of what I'm talking about today is from their feedback and their questions, which was really helpful. So that's what I wanted to share with you, what we did. So I wanted to just kick this off with a quote from Satya because everyone I discuss Windows as a Service and current branch and long-term servicing branch, they're like, this is very different than Windows 7, and that is 100% true. So when I grabbed this quote, there's certain things that popped out, like, willing to lean into uncertainty. We are definitely in a new time here with what we're trying to do, and if that's what you feel, then you're doing the right thing, and we're all learning as we go. So that's 100%. When we say take risk, we're not asking you to take risk with with the responsibilities that you have. What we're saying is we've got to do something new, and you have to figure out what works for you in your environment. There isn't just one way to do this. We want to pull it off and make it right for you. So we're going to quantify that a little bit. We're definitely going to move quickly. Hopefully we won't make a lot of mistakes, but we always make a mistake. And the only way, the reason I call that out is the only way we're going to get comfortable with the new models that we're going to talk about is to try them and to make mistakes. And the great thing, we've all done proof of concepts and we've all done pilots. So that's really what we're talking about here. A proof of concept or a pilot is really what we're asking people to do to pull this off, okay? And learn what you don't know and try what you don't try. And the reason I bring it up is the last workshop that we're at, that was last month, talked to a customer, he said, hey, look, Windows 10, you can't pick which patch you want each patch Tuesday. I said, get it. And then he was going through it, and he said, I can remove a patch and then an application will work, and then I can't do that anymore with Windows 10. And I said, have you, so I go, I just want to confirm, have you tried this application on Windows 10? And he said, no. And I said, okay, I'm not guaranteeing you that the application is going to work. It should work, but he had a lot of fear and hadn't even tried it yet. So I think we all have that inside of us. We know how much work this is, and who wakes up at night and feels like you just finished your Windows 7 deployment from XP? It doesn't seem like a long time ago, right? I was in consulting around there, and you're just like, it might have been a year or two ago, but I feel like I just finished it. So we have all this going on, and I'm trying to be, very real with you about that stuff because we know you did a ton of work for that and you don't want to repeat that over and over. So our goal is that we're not going to repeat that. All right, that's the goal. So for anyone who, just to clarify and kind of level set, what is Windows as a Service? What is that? And the abbreviation here is WAAS. Microsoft has moved to releasing Windows 10 releases twice a year. The new term for it is called the semi-annual release channel, okay? Really catchy. Hopefully you can find a t-shirt with that on. That's pretty rare stuff. So it used to be called current branch, just in case you're like, I remember the terms. The key thing to here remember is it has an 18-month support cycle, okay? And we'll talk about that right away. And so we'll release them in around September and around March, and we'll just use those around terms because sometimes they could slip a little bit. And then another one comes out. So good starting point. What does this look like in practice as we move this out? So around every 6 months, we're going to have a release. These are what the numbers will be. Who knows what 1703 means? Is that some secret code number? Who knows? Go ahead. You're good. Yeah, so she said it's the year 2017 and March is the third year. So just to let you know, the reason why that's important is Windows does that, the Office team does that, the configuration manager team uses the same numbers, and if you align the numbers, you should be in good shape when you're rolling things out, and it's just the way we're doing that. So and some of this is kind of new, and as we're even rebranding things. The one thing I like to point out with this picture, for people who haven't run through this yet, is what changes need to be looked at in your environment. So this kind of greenish section here that we look at, that's the plus is when that release occurred, and the greenish section is basically the time that you should spend rolling it out in a pilot fashion in your environment. So initially it could go straight to some test machines in IT, and then maybe a week later they go to a test group in IT, and then a broader group in IT. But then we do need to move out to the business even when we're in this section here, okay? And really the key is who are the right people in the business who could volunteer for this, and they want to volunteer and want to give good feedback. And that's not an easy thing, right? Now, when you look at this, at least mentally, it helps to think about just think about patching your environment, okay? It's a much smaller thing to do on Patch Tuesday than it is to roll out a new operating system. But think about it in that process, because that's what we're trying to do with the tools, is to get it to the point where you're literally saying, start with your pilot groups, go one at a time, and then as you move to the right of the line, you're going to the more sensitive people and environments that you got to be really careful with. All right, so if you think of it like a patching event, that's how you should think about this, okay? And luckily it's not every month, but it's roughly every 6 months. And then you need to think, like we talked about, those groups. And so when we talk about the first pilot group, that's where they'll exist. Then on the next release, they'll be in the same spot, right? So it just follows the same pattern. And that's what the process looks like, is that they'll go first every time. And then there's the second group, which is the same thing. And we'll just make it real simple because of my great writing here. And then at some point, you'll get into the dark blue area where you'll have the other groups. And these are people that you do not want to have go first, so you do it here. And it goes on and on and on. So that is what we're doing. That's what's very different when it comes to operating system deployment, but we try to treat it like patches. And luckily, I bumped into a customer who's kind of doing their first upgrade from 1511, and they told me that if we make a spectrum here and say patching is on the left and an operating system deployment is on the right, so on the left-hand side, we'll say this is not a lot of work compared to a full operating system deployment. Like that could be a ton of work. I said, well, what was your experience of moving from 1511 to 1703? He said it was kind of in the middle right now. It wasn't as much work as deploying like Windows 7 was, but it's not as easy as patching yet. It's getting there. He said it's getting there. So our goal is to get this as close to over here as far as the effort that you need to do. I'm sorry, do you have a question? Okay, good, all right. So that's at least what Windows as a service is. That's what we recommend customers do, and we'll get into that. The last piece of the puzzle here, and I'll jump into, let's see where I have it here. Let's see if I brought it up here. Let me jump out for a second. We're going to lose our great drawings. Just to jump into one other whiteboard. So in that case, we're talking about current branch. We'll go like this. The other option that we have is long-term servicing branch, which the difference is, is that this is released twice a year. This is released let's say roughly every 3 years, give or take a year or two. And the difference is this has 10 years of support, and this has 18 months of support. And so usually a lot of customers say, hey, I like that option on the right. That sounds like what we were doing before. I'm going to go with that. And so that's not the case. And so that's what we're going to talk about when we go through this top 10 list. Essentially what we have is the left-hand side where Microsoft's putting all the efforts, and the right-hand side is only really for exceptions. And there's different examples for different verticals. So if you're in medical vertical, you might have a CAT scan machine plugged into not a Surface Pro, but a PC. That should probably be on a long-term servicing branch. And that vendor, if they're updating their software or sending you new hardware, it should probably be on long-term servicing branch, because they want stability. They do not want, they don't need the latest updates. They don't need all that great stuff. Same thing with manufacturing equipment, all those types of things. Now, if you have, let's say, 100 or 1,000 people in your organization, and they're running Office, they have laptops and desktops, they should be on current branch. So that's kind of the simple version of it. The reality is there's some things that live in the middle here. We had one customer who was ran a hospital, and the clinical workstations that each nurse uses. It's 24/7. It's kind of like as important as a 365, 24-hour-a-day manufacturing floor that can never end. That's the hospital, right? So my dad was in the hospital. I was in there. I knew exactly. I didn't want that PC upgrading to a current branch while I was in there, right? So we need to work through some of those scenarios with them. And when we have those things that fit in the middle that don't fit so easily on the edges, let's bring in the product teams. Let's bring in other resources. And see what we can do. There's always new options that we can talk about. So we'll walk through some of them. But so what I want to do now is kind of walk through that top 10 list as we go through, and just be aware that we have some gray areas on this. So the one thing that I just wanted to document for you is where do you fit in this feedback? So generally with customers that we work with, they fit into one of these profiles. One is, we can do this. We know there's a lot of work, but we think we can get it done. We just need to do it. And there's lots of reasons why they said that, but they did. So there's always some of those people in when we do the workshop. There's a few people that say, we're already doing this. There's not a lot, but they're getting there. So that's good when those customers show up. Then there's always a few that say, we can't do this. It's over. It's over before it started, right? They're like, we can't run a deployment project every 6 months. And the last customer that I had did this, it was a project manager. So I said to her, please tell me what your thoughts are, because her whole world is, how does this align as a project? She said, there's no way we're going to do current branch. So I said, all right, we need to talk, because I must have failed in what I was talking to you about. And then the last two are, some customers deployed long-term servicing branch to everyone for lots of reasons. There's good reasons and maybe some bad reasons, but it doesn't matter. A lot of them are undoing that. If we're talking about people with laptops and desktops, okay, they're undoing it, and we're going to talk about why. And then there's the last group, which hopefully you never fit into, which is, we were breached, and we want to do everything we can to be secure. So we're going to go with the semi-annual releases. So hopefully you don't get there. Our goal is to keep you out of that last column. All right, so the last piece is, there's over 500 million devices running Windows 10 today. Who wants to guess what build they're probably running of those? Most of those are running. Is it long-term servicing branch, or is that current branch? This gentleman said current branch. He's got it. He's got it right. So just think about that when we're making our decisions. There's a lot of people who are running this, and it's working. And if 1% of those 500 million devices had issues, who knows what that number is? Who's good with math? 5 million. All right, he's rolling it here. So 5 million people had problems. You can't hide that, right? I mean, there's social media, there's a million things. So the engineering team is doing a nonstop work to make sure that even at the home level, when they upgrade these devices, that they do a good job, and that when you go to do it, it works as well. So the key is, what tools can we give you so you can actually not just have a good feeling, but actually know that this can work for you. So let's get into that top 10 list right now. All right, so the number one reason that I've seen customers look at current branch is because they want to be as secure as possible. Because we have this is a short list, but there's a million things going on that didn't exist when Windows 7 was happening. So every 6 months, we're updating the operating system. One major reason is for security reasons. So what we're looking at is in this chart here's what the old model looked like under Windows XP, Windows 7, things like that, is that we would release an operating system about every 3 to 5 years. That's what the big bars are here. And what would happen is at first it'd be very secure, but over time there'd be vulnerabilities that people would find and exploit them. Sometimes we could patch them, sometimes a third party could help, but sometimes not. And at the end of the day, we could fix it in the next release because we'd update the kernel, but then over time we'd have more issues. And the issue is we're talking 3 to 5 years between releases. And in today's world, that's just too long. All right, that's just way too long. So what we moved to is this new model, which is every 6 months, essentially. So this is every 6 months out we go, which is 2 times annually. And we're not saying that those gaps don't exist anymore. We're saying that we're filling them and doing things proactively every 6 months. All right, and that's huge. That's really huge. So what are we doing? We're trying to avoid this. We don't want anyone to show up with, what's your option to do here? Well, the good news is they gave you a way out. You just proceed the payment and then everything's fine. But honestly, we don't want to get anywhere near that. So the technologies we're putting in are to block those 0 days, ransomware, and the end users that click on anything, right? So if you send 100 emails to people, what's the chance that they'll click on them? There's a big chance there. When we look at what we did with Windows 7, we did a lot at the time, but we actually had some gaps. We actually didn't do anything with identity protection or post-breach. So if you are breached, can we detect it and let you know? There's some regulations that, like GDPR out of the EU, which require you to disclose fairly quickly if there's a breach. There's lots of details that you have to work through of what that means, but we had nothing in Windows 7, and we all know about the recent Equifax breach, and there's already people saying we want to pass legislation on how quickly you need to announce it in the United States. So this is something that's not going to be delayed much longer probably. So what do we do in Windows 10? We put on several layers here. Each one of these, if you typed in the name of this, there'd be great sessions on it, so we're not going to go through all of them today. And if you put the 64-bit layer on, this is what's available today. This is not even what's coming out. So we got tons of things here we're investing across the board, and we update these every 6 months, and we add new things in as well. So that's the short version of that, but if you look at all the sessions around Windows 10 and security, you'll see Microsoft as part of our $1 billion investments. It's security and on the client side is a huge part of it. So the short of it is you don't exactly get that if you go with long-term servicing branch. Who knows how long, just to recap, how often is long-term servicing branch released? Roughly 3 years, right? So that's good. So just to let you know, the thought wasn't, hey, you could upgrade every 3 years. The thought was you would deploy it on that machine and walk away from it and just patch it every Patch Tuesday and let it run for almost 10 years. So there's but there is that middle ground where in some scenarios you can run long-term servicing branch and upgrade it. But you're not gonna get all those security capabilities updated all the time, all right? The last thing on this first one, this is the one we spend the most time on because security is just, it has to happen, right? Is whatever you think about like you can't do or you don't think this will work, you have to loop in your security team. And if you're the security person that's here, you got to loop in yourself, all right? Or raise it up to the CIO or even your CFO, whoever else will listen, even the board of directors. Because most customers I talk with or hear from, said the board of directors are actually asking a lot of questions, and not at technology companies, at regular companies. And they're usually saying, are you doing everything we can do to be secure? And the answers need to be worked through, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be your call alone of what you're going to do. And maybe you need more funding, maybe you need more people. I know that's really hard, but at the same time, let the security team make this call. Don't let the desktop or client team say this is what it is without having everyone in the room. That's absolutely the key thing, because most people that come to our workshop are not the security leads. And so we say, listen, you need to bring them in, and as busy and as smart as those people are, they're very busy, the security team, they may not know all this as well. So you might have to help educate them. All right, we talked about this one. It's 500 million devices. We already went through this. Most of them are running current branch. So when Microsoft gets all the telemetry back and says what's going on, what's working, what's not working, it's from current branch. So the long-term servicing branch is its own build, and there's different telemetry. We'll just leave it at that. So if you called support and said, I have an issue, ideally you would say, I'm seeing this, how many of the 500 million are seeing it? If you're on long-term servicing branch, you're in a different world a little bit. So you still get support, it's just they're going to be like, okay, there's not nearly as many people running that, so we haven't seen that problem as often. So just keep that in mind. There is a numbers thing going on here. The third thing that we talk about is the silicon support policy, which is the bottom line where Intel and AMD, they're innovating faster as well. So hardware used to be the safe thing, like, oh, we're not going to have to worry about that. But if they release, we release a build 1703, and then Intel a few months later releases some new chipset, we're going to support that in 1709, which is our next release date, right? We got that. So current branch will support that. Long-term servicing branch, you're going to be waiting, 2 to 3 years, wherever you are in that life cycle, to get support for that new chipset. So work very close with your OEM on how to align things. It's not just Microsoft's policies. Everyone's moving fast, and those chip vendors ship a new chip, and they'll go, it may not be perfect, but we're going to ship it, and we'll update the firmware as we go along. That happens. So it's very different than how it used to be. So these 2 links, you can download this deck, have all those support policies, and you can run through that, and there's some more details for you. This is, bottom line is, it says it requires the latest Windows platform to support it. That's a quick quote from one of those links. So then there's the Surface support policy. So yes, it's hardware, it falls under that previous policy, but Surface, if you haven't used one, it ships with current branch. If you go to a retail store or however you buy it, it's going to ship with current branch. There's a whole discussion we can have around that, but some customers put long-term servicing branch on that. It will run, but the link from the support document here is a real good one. Suboptimal end user experiences. That's not what, this is a public article. This isn't like something I dug up internally at Microsoft. And at the end of the day, they want to keep this device secure, and there's new things they're doing with Surface, so those things are built in the current branch. So just to let you know, I really recommend you don't put long-term servicing branch on one of these devices, because while it will run Windows, the people are going to say this isn't great. So that's another reason. All right, Office. Hopefully you're running Office on Windows. Who here uses Office 365 Pro Plus? Most of the room. Great. So great. You're aligning Windows 10 with Office with 365. That's perfect. That's basically the Microsoft 365 modern workplace experience. So the good news is if you're running Pro Plus and Windows 10 current branch, you're in really good shape. If you're running long-term servicing branch of Windows 10, the recommendation is that you do not use Pro Plus. Now it's a recommendation, which is a very different word than officially supported or not supported. So here we have those specialty systems that are listed here, and here they're saying you should use the good old reliable MSI for that. And for those laptops and desktops that are not specialty systems, say let's use current branch. So that's from that page. So that's the Office team. All right, so you're getting the vibes here, right, of what they're doing testing with, what they're using. Number 6, current branch and long-term servicing branch, they have differences. They're not the same build. So if you go to the volume licensing site and want to kick the tires on long-term servicing branch, that's a completely separate, different download. It's not the same image. It's not like you have one image and you can kind of push it out. You're now doing 2 separate images if you have it there. There's also things that aren't in there. And when I was writing this, there has to be someone thinking, that's perfect. I don't want that stuff in there. How do I get that stuff out of there? There you go. So the good news is that if you're running current branch, there's many ways to get rid of the really critical things like the Xbox app and Candy Crush and things that your CIO needs and executive team. You can do all that. They're improving that every time. So we can talk about that. So do not go to long-term servicing branch just to get rid of those things. We can shut down the store and do all that stuff. So just please don't do it for that reason. The other thing, though, is every time there's a new capability released, like this fall, they won't be in long-term servicing branch until we release another one, which is a year or 2 out, whatever that is. So that's kind of a little difference there as well. And then upgrades. So when we started off, we started looking at those different upgrades and say you pick a pilot group and you go from one build to the next. That's current branch. That's exactly what it was built to do. Long-term servicing branch can be upgraded from one to another. So I think the last one was 1607 was the last long-term servicing branch. So whenever the next one comes out, I don't know what it's going to be. We'll just call it number. 1903. All right, we got a 1903 up here. I feel like an auctioneer. When that one comes out for a long-term servicing branch, you can upgrade it in place. But there's some caveats. You have to just basically do a full OS deployment. There's no special tools that say, oh, just do the upgrade for me. You have to push the whole OS down and do that. That may not be a problem if you're really good with Config Manager or Zero Touch, but for some people that might be too much. So what that also means is if you want to do the servicing rings inside a Config Manager or Windows Update for Business, that's only for current branch. So what that looks like, I just took a screenshot. This is Config Manager. This is, I think, 1702 build. We have the current branch and the current branch for business piece. But essentially, I can pick a time and say, wait 7 days after the current branch is released, and then target this group with an upgrade, and it will do that. And what it will do is, it's not pushing the full OS down. It's pushing down what's called an ESD file, which is essentially, if I hold up an Apple device, it's kind of like what Apple does when they upgrade your phone. They just push down the upgrade and then it happens. It's not a full OS, it's just a package. Oh, go ahead. All right, great, thank you. And so that whole process, there's background to that. So current branch is the only one that's optimized for those updates using these ESD files. All right, so what does that mean? Let's look at it. Today, what we have, a full media, which we'll just call it the WIM up here, is around 2.7 gigs, and then this ESD file, which comes from Windows Update, is smaller than that. It's almost a gig smaller. So everyone wants to save bandwidth on their network, and that's good. So that's where we're at today. ESD is already smaller. Where a future release, we're going to be down here. So we're going to be, 2.7 to whatever 1.4 on 32-bit, and a little bit more on 64-bit. These numbers only apply to current branch. When you want to upgrade the long-term servicing branch, it's the full OS each time. So just let you know, some people that's not a problem, but just to let you know it is. It's actually getting very, very small as we go through. All right, last one. When Microsoft works with ISVs, just like we are working with ISVs, we're not just sitting back going, I hope this all works out, okay? So like big ISVs like SAP, but also much smaller ones, making sure that the ecosystem understands what our direction is and where they should go. We're asking them and working with them to get ready for current branch. All right, now, so down below is an example of an SAP support statement. This is from a blog, and if you're an SAP customer, you have to log in to get the official articles, but they'll support current branch. The LTSB is really only for, again, those specialty systems. So when we're working with the specialty system people, we tell them use LTSB. That's the right thing to do. But that's where we're investing our time. So I'll just bring up a screenshot. Here's from the blog, SAP supporting Windows 10. That's actually the current branch that they're supporting. All right, the last one. We have to give you we have to change a lot to make this possible for you. We can't just say go do your deployments like you used to. So we came out with 2 tools. This one's really simple. It's a website ready for Windows and Windows Analytics. All right, so if you haven't seen these are 2 sessions you need to go to. I'm just going to break out, show these briefly, and then we'll wrap it up. Ready for Windows is just a site where you can go in, type a vendor. We're really close with Citrix, so let me type that. And it will give a list of what this is. If you can see it, it gives a list of all the applications Citrix has ever published that we have seen running on Windows 10. So who remembers when Windows 10 came out and there are all the telemetry discussions? What is Microsoft gathering? What use is it? This is that telemetry, okay? And it's completely anonymous, so it's not about whose machine it's on, it's what's being used. What we have here on the top left, official support statement from Citrix with a link to that. And then we have a lot of data here that I'll keep zooming in on. So on this build, we have highly adopted. That means 100,000 people or more are using that. And there's usually a good question, well, is it working though? Just because they're using it, maybe it's crashing every 5 minutes. My understanding is that means it's working well. And one reason I've heard that from the product team, but also there's some builds that have this contact software provider. That's probably not a good thing, right? So don't be on that build. And so this is telemetry that you can get access to just by looking through your vendors. Now, it's a little bit manual, so that's when we jump over to the upgrade readiness from Windows Analytics. We'll target in on your machines, just your telemetry. This is a free service that we have. I have a link at the end of the deck of a good session that I recommend you go to. And essentially, we're going to look at how many applications do you have? All right, you have 33,000. How many need review? How do we know that? It's because that 500 million machines, we know what works and hasn't been working. Here's over here, which ones have known issues? So if we dig in there and click on, is there a fix available? Let me see if I can get in here right now. Oops. Let's click on that and dig in. So we'll dig in a little bit. Is there a fix available? We'll click on this. I'll zoom in so you can see it, hopefully. And this is just one example. This is a checkpoint example. There's the upgrade assessment said there's a fix available and ready for Windows. We actually integrate the ready for Windows content in here. Usually, okay, is it in here? I guess the ready for Windows content will be that there's a fix available. So that will let you know. Is it? Oh, right there it is, ready for Windows. So that takes you back to the other side as well. So this one tool brings it all together for you, so you don't have to go running around trying to figure out what you have and don't have. And this tool you would use from going from Windows 7 to Windows 10, but also Windows 10 to the next Windows 10 build, all right? And it gives you all those insights into the applications. There might be some that aren't in there, in-house written apps. Okay, so then you can categorize them and take them from there as well. The last piece is it's also looking at drivers. So what drivers do you have? Are there some known issues? Do you want to pull from Windows Update? It's giving you all that information. So this will essentially lead you down to when you're ready to deploy, which machines are ready to deploy, which ones won't upgrade. Maybe the drive's full, who knows? Maybe it's running an old processor, XP logo. I have a bunch of those machines. They won't go to Windows 10. This gives you that insight. So this is very powerful. You do need to send telemetry to us. It's the basic level, and even countries in the EU have agreed that that basic level is safe enough. So the details are in the links at the end, but I just wanted to show you that because that's a must-have tool if you're going to think about this. So here's the flip side. All that data, that does not work with long-term servicing branch. If you're on long-term servicing branch, that tool does not do anything for you. And I didn't know that until just a few months ago myself. That might change at some point, but I haven't heard anyone announce that. So if you're doing long-term servicing branch, you're kind of flying with your own tests and things, which is, we didn't do it intentionally. Those are supposed to be really for specialty systems. So that's why some of those decisions were made. So these are just screenshots. You can see the deck later. Where do we go from here? I just wanted to call a few call to actions. One is, if you have a Microsoft representative, reach out to them. They have programs and everything to help you around your Windows 10. Everyone might have different needs. They'll work with you on that. This is not something, we're not saying, hey, leave here and good luck. That's not what we're saying at all. We can bring in certified partners. We have funding. We're very, very interested in helping. So that's number one. If that's all you remember, call your Microsoft rep and said, I need help. This guy said you'd help me. You can give him my name. The other thing is, I learn by doing things. I really don't like reading those 400-page books anymore. The Ignite Hands-On Labs have great labs that will walk you through Windows as a service. There's TechNet virtual labs, which anyone can do in case they didn't go to Ignite. And then there's something called the Windows 10 Deployment Management Lab Kit. I just want to call that out. This is an environment you download. It's like 30 gig download into a Hyper-V environment. Every time we do a new release of Windows 10, the consulting teams inside of Microsoft create a new toolkit that say, hey, look, who's interested in BIOS to UEFI conversion? There's a lab that walks you through that on exactly step-by-step how to do it with screenshots. It's amazing. What about security? Hey, I need to learn about Credential Guard or ATP or Windows Information Protection, whatever it is. Step-by-step guides, exactly how to do it. If you don't know a thing about Config Manager, this is it will step you through it. You don't need to know a thing, it will teach you how to do it. It's better than anything I can see. And they just added, if you're not up to date on Pro Plus, they just added a new workshop there. So the only thing to watch out is it expires every 90 days. So this one, for the people in the back, that says December 2nd. So it's good for that amount of time, and then they're going to publish another one because we'll have a new release, and you just keep going and going. I would spend more time here than anywhere else. Last thing on the list, we just looked at it, Windows Analytics. Here's the link to it. It's free, okay? Your time is not free, but this tool is free. It's going to save you time, and the Ready for Windows site as well. So we'll wrap it up where we began. There's a lot of real concerns of what you need to do to adopt current branch. The goal of this session is to show you where Microsoft's investing a lot of time and effort and the differences between the branches that are out there. And it doesn't mean don't use long-term servicing branch, but just wanted you to know when you make a decision, what are all the things you need to think about. And the goal of this session was to kind of get it down to just a short list, and you can share these links and read in them and talk and have those broader conversations with your security team, with your upper management team. Say, hey, look, we got to talk to them. This is, you want to keep the company secure, we need to talk about the broader picture here. And that's it. Last thing, Michael Niehaus, any session he does, watch it, record it, or live. Everything's available post-show, even for people that didn't attend. And this was a session on the Windows Analytics that we just talked about. That will be up. That's a cloud service, so it gets upgraded all the time, new things all the time. So hopefully this was helpful. If you could fill out your evaluation, I'd really appreciate it. And thanks for the extra time. I know we went over, but I think hopefully it was valuable to you. Thanks again. All right.